We're back. Welcome back to Cardinal Territory. I'm Katie Woo. He's Trevor Rosenthal. We have officially reached the dog days of spring. I feel like we've lived the same day out here in Jupiter for the last 30 days, but some good news is on the horizon. There are less than 2 weeks left of spring training, less than 3 weeks until opening day. And camp is about to heat up from a position battle standpoint. The next week and a half, 2 weeks of games, they're going to matter a lot in terms of player performance, and the Cardinals certainly have a lot to figure out in that regard. Trevor, how are you? What do you think of camp so far?
What's up, Katie? I'm doing good. I feel like this is the time of camp where I agree. It's you're getting a little anxious to get the season started. This might be the time of year where I'm like looking over, across the clubhouse. If you're in the clubhouse, Katie, be like, Katie, you need a nickname. Like, do you have a nickname? What we need to come up with one. Just looking for some creative things to get through these last couple weeks.
Yeah, it definitely feels that way. And some of these guys have been here. Like there's, who's competing for a spot and who's not, who's eventually going to be cut, and then there's the middle ground, and that's what we as baseball enthusiasts are really latching onto. Like the pressing questions for the Cardinals over the last 2 weeks of spring. There are a ton of position battles. Center field, we've talked about that all spring long. Is it going to be Victor Scott II or Michael Ciani? The bench is still yet to be determined. You know that there's going to be some combination of Ivan Herrera and Pedro Pajes. So whoever is not the starting catcher, that's going to take a role off the bench. Super utility, there are 3 guys in camp right now: Jose Fermin, Jose Barrero, and Michael Hellman. I got 3 brain cells today, so everyone that is watching, just bear with me. And then you have a bunch of pitching battles, and that's where I think we should start today, Trevor, you being a pitcher and all of that. Let's start with the rotation. Coming into camp, was under the impression that it'd be a battle for the 5th spot between Steven Matz and Andre Pallante. That has changed. Enter Michael McGreevy and Matthew Liberatore, who, as we know, came up through the Cardinals farm system as a starting pitcher, bounced around a lot between roles. He was in the rotation, he was in relief, he was in Memphis, he was in St. Louis, really figured things out for himself in the second half of last season as a multi-inning reliever. But he's looked really good this spring. His stuff has played up, and now he is back in the rotation mix. Sonny Gray, Eric Fetty, Miles Michaelis, those guys are locks for the rotation, which essentially means there are 4 guys competing for 2 spots right now. Trevor, how do you think this is going to shake out?
Yeah, I agree. McGreevy's looked really good. I think it's interesting. I've been listening to the guys on the Deal in the Cards podcast for a few months now. They keep calling. Yeah, shout out to those guys. They do a great job. They're a lot of fun. But they've been calling for Eric Fetty to get traded for a while, and I think there's even a better case for that when you look at somebody like Michael McGreevy. And ideally, I mean, you would like to have him get some opportunity at the major league level this year. And I don't think that that's going to happen out of the gate. I think he's a guy that starts in AAA because of Gray and Fetty and Michaelis being anchors in that rotation. And then I think Liberatore, I think he's going to be a guy. Well, I'll back up. I think Pallante, first and foremost, I think he's going to be that 4th guy. And then when we look at the 5th spot in the rotation, I think what I'm seeing with how they've been playing this out so far, with Liberatore not getting any starts and coming in and kind of piggybacking, it's like a hybrid 6-man rotation. And I like this. I like it even more if Liberatore was getting starts and they were piggybacking Matz with him in his starts, and for a few reasons, but mainly because of Matt's health. I think it should be a priority to keep him healthy and maybe limit his usage at the beginning of the season. But combining those 2 guys together, especially in the beginning, would give us an opportunity to see how it all shakes out. I don't know. That's kind of what I'm thinking. What do you got, Katie?
So let's backtrack a little bit with Eric Fetty and Steven Matz, and if they're legitimate trade candidates. I think the Cardinals have been trying to trade Matz for a while. There just hasn't been a market for him. If there was, I don't think he would be here still. And it's complicated things a little bit just in terms of, the runway, the opportunity, all of our favorite words of spring, and if that exists in the rotation or not. But as I'm looking at how this is going to pan out for the Cardinals. I don't see them trading Eric Fetty. He's making $7.5 million. That is a steal. It's a downright steal for a middle rotation guy. Is Eric Fetty going to be an ace? No. Is he going to be a serviceable major league starting pitcher on almost any rotation that's not the Dodgers or the Phillies? Yes. And that he's being paid $7.5 million. The Cardinals are not going to trade that, for a multitude of reasons currently, but the biggest one being they really don't have a lot of depth outside the names we just mentioned, and that's not including Matthew Liberatore, who could still be used as a reliever, similar to last year. They're just also considering him in the starting role. If camp broke today, the 5 that I think the Cardinals would go with are Sonny Gray, Eric Fetty, Miles Michaelis, Andre Pallante, Steven Matz. Now, before you start booing me, just hear me out. And let me also clarify, that's not the 5 I would go with. But coming from just the conversations that I've had in camp and talking to multiple people in the organization, if camp broke today, that's what I think they would end up doing. The Cardinals, again, let's go back to the depth thing. If you look at their pitchers in AAA, if it's not Mike McGreevy in AAA, and who's ready? Who's major league ready right now? Sema Brissa? Not really. Quinn Matthews is a guy, but he's not ready for the big leagues. Tank Hens is not ready for the big leagues. Jacob Roby looks great, but he has not posted more than 40 innings in the last 2 years. He's had back-to-back injury seasons in the last 2 years. Staying healthy is going to be the top priority for him. And what you do not want to do, what the Cardinals have done for a very long time, is rush these young pitchers up to the majors when they're not ready, because these guys are going to be instrumental in this transition period. So as much as I don't like this, I'm a Michael McGreevy stan. I think he's looked great this spring. I think he deserves a chance to compete in the starting 5. I'm with you. I think he would start in AAA. Now, is he going to be the first one up out of, if there's ever an injury? Injuries are unfortunate, but they aren't inevitable. Like they're going to happen. Yeah, then I think we see McGreevy immediately. But if the Cardinals don't have Matz in the rotation, he goes to relief because you can't send him down. And now all of a sudden you're short that very critical AAA depth. That's where I'm at with starting 5. It's not a popular answer. Fans aren't going to like it, but I think from an organization standpoint, it's probably what you have to do to ensure that you actually have people that are going to cover those innings, especially with Drew Rom and Zach Thompson down with injuries right now.
Yeah, I think when I'm listening to you talk, I mean, it's like, I don't even think it's so much like the dog days or the monotony of spring training at this point. I think for fans, it's almost like, all right, let's rip this Band-Aid off. Like let's get this season going. And we know there's a lot of questions, but let's just get it over with. We want to all these questions, the runway, the transition, whatever it is, who's going to get the work in, and who are, when are we going to see what we got? We just kind of want to get it rolling. But of course, we got a few more weeks. The starting pitchers in particular, they've only thrown 3 innings max so far. So they still need a couple. Yeah, they need some time to get built up to that 5-6 inning mark.
Yeah, I think we'll see Miles, who pitches up Wednesday. He'll hit 5, and Matt's is slated to go Thursday. He'll hit 5 as well. Pallante, I believe, is the Friday night game in Port St. Lucie, and McGreevy coming in behind him. But still very much a competition. What I just said, those 5 names could change. Matthew Liberatore, again, the stuff goes up. So I had some conversations about why Libby was stretched out as a starter, given how successful he was as a reliever last year. And it made sense from the obvious standpoints. It's easier to cut innings back rather than ramp them up in a short period of time. That's a recipe for injury. Can't have that with someone as valuable as Matthew Liberatore. The Cardinals also found out and figured out in conversations with him that Liberatore likes to be stretched out this spring or in spring because it allows him to have better feel for his pitches, use his arsenal more, and he feels like he's more effective to start the year because he's had more opportunities to throw the ball. Obviously, as a starting pitcher, you're going to have more innings than a relief pitcher in spring training. So it was kind of a twofold thing. What both parties didn't really expect to see, at least to this degree, was just how much Libby stuff has played up this year. He looks like a really convinced, commanding pitcher. And maybe that stems from the season he had in 24 and building off that confidence. But I mean, he has been lights out. He got roughed up a little bit yesterday. But, Matthew Liberatore is not a guy that really gives up that many consecutive ground balls. So it wasn't like repeatability of that aspect is not a concern, at least to me. So he's forcing a difficult conversation. Do I ultimately think that the Cardinals are probably going to put him back in the bullpen? Yes. But I can also see them weighing what we just talked about with the depth and the McGreevy thing. If you have McGreevy, let's say in AAA, but nobody behind him, do you need 2? Think about a team like the Milwaukee Brewers, who were decimated by injuries, the Los Angeles Dodgers, decimated by pitching injuries, but they consistently had people in the tank ready to go. The Cardinals have not had that for years, and they still don't have that now. They're trying to fix that, but this is something that's going to take, I think, years to really come to fruition. So that's another thing to consider with Liberatore is, yeah, he's earned every right to be on the Major League roster. He, in my opinion, is someone that is valuable that you build around your opening day roster, absolutely. But do the Cardinals need to protect themselves and make some hard decision when it comes to AAA depth? I think that's the bigger conversation here.
Yeah, there's pitching is so important. There's no, I mean, we've seen it this spring training, a lot of injuries. Cardinals been fortunate, not too many on the pitching side so far. So knock on wood, keep that going. But yeah, you can never have too much pitching, and when it's limited to begin with, you got to be really careful about who you're shipping out. I mean, there are some guys, right? Like there's some free agents still out there. What do you think? I mean, I'm surprised. Like Kyle Gibson, Lance Lynn, these guys haven't signed.
Oh, one of them has to be a Yankee any day now, right?
That's
I mean,
right.
Look, Cardinals fans, it could be worse. You could have had a week like the New York Yankees just did.
Ouch.
That is brutal. I mean, Garrett Cole news, that just sucks. You hate to see that.
You hate to see it.
Yeah, it's a weird time in Cardinals camp, and something to remember, myself included, when we're projecting this opening day roster for this transition period, is that what's going on in AAA matters just as much with the big league club. So that's fun. That's also going to matter when the Cardinals look at planning their bullpen, which this is your bread and butter, Trevor. You know all about relief pitchers, who's in, who's out. The Cardinals bullpen last year was one of the best in baseball. They were super effective. I think the Cardinals played in 107 games out of 162 that were decided by 3 runs or fewer, and they had a winning percentage of 561% in those games. That was the second best mark in all of baseball. The reason they were able to do that was because they had a lockdown latter half of that bullpen. You're thinking about JoJo Romero, Andrew Kittredge, Ryan Helsley, of course, and then guys like Liberatore and Ryan Fernandez stepping up and shining in those key roles in the mid innings. The Cardinals are now tasked with replicating that same success last year, minus Kittredge, which is a pretty significant blow. And they're going to do that all internally. So let's go through who's definitely in the bullpen. Ryan Helsley's your closer. We know that. JoJo Romero is going to return to the setup man role from the left-hand side. Ryan Fernandez is under consideration for the setup man role. His exact role is yet to be determined, but he's going to be in the bullpen. John King, he'll be in there as well. That's a guy where, everyone has a role. You need a guy that can come in if you're down 2 in the 7th inning and keep you down 2. And John King has proven that he can do that again and again. So those are 4 out of 8. Matthew Liberatore, again, maybe he's in there, maybe he's not. So there are, let's say, 3 to 4 spots up for grabs for the bullpen. And there are 6 right-handers kind of all in one unit that the Cardinals are looking at. Let's name them. Gordon Graceffo, Nick Anderson, Rodri Munoz, Chris Roycroft, Riley O'Brien, and Kyle Leahy. This is a very competitive area of the roster. It's going to come down to performance. Ollie Marmol said it today. I was talking to him pregame. He said performance matters. Effectiveness matters. We're going to be evaluating on if guys are getting outs the way they're supposed to. If you're a ground ball guy, are you getting the balls on the ground? If you're a swing and miss guy, are you missing bats? Performance is going to matter in this element of roster making decision more than anything. Trevor, what's your read on the bullpen right now?
Well, you said group of right-handed. Nick Anderson's lefty, correct?
No, I think he's right-handed.
Oh, he's right-handed? Oh,
yeah.
My bad. I don't know why I have to think it. Well, shout out to Ryan Helsley. Katie, we missed you on the last episode. We took over. I know everybody loves Katie Woo, but he's a stud. That was so fun to get I thought he did a great job and gave us a little bit of an insight to who he is, the guy behind the intimidating walkout song and the lights flashing. But I mean, it's tough. I mentioned Nick Anderson because I think he's a guy. He's done pretty good this spring. His last outing was really nice, and I think he just brings a level of veteran stability. I'm speaking from experience. It was always nice when you had a guy that had been around to come in and be a part of that squad, especially early in the season. And a lot of these other guys are young, and I think keeping him in the mix brings a level of just confidence, experience to that unit. So I have to strongly consider him. Who that ends up leaving out, I'm not sure. I mean, the good thing about this bullpen in general is that outside of really like JoJo Romero and Ryan Helsley, everybody has options. So everybody, we can move around a lot of pieces. What are you thinking as I'm kind of talking about Anderson? I mean, what's your opinion on that? How do you see that playing into this decision?
Anderson is a big one for me because it's not just about how he profiles in with this club. And I totally agree with you about the veteran presence. And that's something that John Mozeliak has had an affinity for in years past. He likes the guy that's been through some adversity, can be that veteran component next to Helsley. We talked about this with maybe Steven Matz, right? But Nick Anderson is going to be under consideration for contractual issues, not issues, but things to consider as well. He has what's called, I just learned this phrase today.
Upward mobility clause.
Yes, it is a very rare thing when you're talking about minor league contracts. Essentially, it's a clause in your contract that allows you to continue negotiating and talking with other teams for another spot on their major league roster. So if the Cardinals don't have Nick Anderson on their major league roster, they're most likely going to lose him. If he does make the major league roster, he's a non-roster invite, so that's going to cost you a 40-man spot, and he's going to make $1.1 million. Now, that's not a lot of money in baseball land, but the Cardinals haven't spent it all, so we have to keep that in perspective too. That's one thing to consider with Nick Anderson. But if I'm looking at the group as a whole, who has stood out to me from a performance standpoint, there is one guy clear and away that separated himself from that pack, and that's Chris Roycroft. He's looked really good this spring. Saw him on Sunday against the Yankees, free punch outs, looked really good. The stuff is up. He has more, similar with Liberatore, really, more confidence, more control. And he's been a name that people are excited about. I could see penciling him in that opening day rotation or bullpen, If spring ended today, I think he'd be right in there. I would love to see what Gordon Graceffo looks like as a true reliever. Some of it is going to be depth. Do they need more depth in AAA? I don't really know if they're looking at Graceffo for that, but it's something they have to consider. They think his stuff is going to play out more in shorter stints. The velo has, the command has. What has not gone well for Graceffo is the results in the box score. Now, spring training stats are spring training stats. And a lot of the times guys are working on sequences. They're throwing pitches in ways that they would not do so. You know this, Trevor, like how many times in spring did you just go out with a ridiculous sequence just because you were trying to get all the feels for your pitches?
Yeah, it's a fun time to try things out. But I mean, I think I like Graceffo. I think he looks really good. And the biggest thing that I like about him is, the box score hasn't been great. He's given up some hard hit balls, some hits have fallen. He's given up some runs, but he's not far away. Like it's not like he's not commanding the zone and putting guys on base, giving free passes all the time. So he's got great stuff. I would like to see him get an opportunity to start. But I agree, Roycroft has looked excellent as well, and those two guys might edge out my guy O'Brien. I'm not sure. I mean, I'm still high on him, but with the competitiveness that we're having in camp, it might be hard for him to break into the roster to begin the season.
Yeah, we haven't really seen O'Brien in a lot of games lately, so they got to get him in there. We got to keep him fresh. Another guy that we're not talking about enough. Every spring there's a reliever that comes in out of nowhere that no one is really paying attention to, and all of a sudden we're talking about. That's Roger Munoz. He did not fare well on Tuesday. 2 homers at Roger Dean. Not a good day for the pitching staff for the St. Louis Cardinals. But he's a big arm. He was a starter for Miami last year, and the Cardinals are really intrigued with what he can do with a shorter window, shorter innings. He has a 6-pitch arsenal. Now the key is using that arsenal as a reliever instead of a starter, which means finding your 2 or 3 pitches that are your strongest, using them more, and mixing in your secondary pitches when necessary to keep hitters off balance. So they're working on pitch mix along with just trying to learn this new arm as well. I don't necessarily think that he'll make the opening day roster, but he's definitely someone that I expect to impact the big league club at some point this year. I think Kyle Leahy is a sneaky pick to crack this roster as well. He has pitches from both sides. Like he can get right-handers, left-handers out. He's not super splitty. I actually think he pitched better against lefties last year, and he added a sinker. He's really adaptable to game situations, and I think you need a guy like Leahy from the right side, similar to what King did. Keep games that you're losing in control. There's a big difference between being down 2 in the 6th to being down 4 in the 8th. So you need guys that aren't necessarily high leverage guys to be in the lower half of the bullpen, but their role is just as important there.
100%. So, I mean, from what I'm hearing you say, you're going to go ahead and pencil in Roycroft, probably pencil in Leahy, and
I think
maybe
Graceffo and Anderson. Yeah.
Graceffo and Anderson. But that'd be 9, right? If we have Liberatore.
Yeah, I mean, it would have to be one of the 2.
Yeah, so it would kind of come down between Graceffo and Anderson.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a tough one.
It's tough. That's why these performances are really going to impact a lot. But you are right what you said about the options. Roycroft and I believe O'Brien have 2. Don't quote me on that one. I know Roycroft has 2. Everyone else has 1, including John King. So there is some flexibility there. Bullpens are always kind of a carousel, revolving door. I expect the Cardinals to use that to their strength. The only one with limitations, like we said, is Anderson.
I thought Munoz was a nice pickup from Miami. Miami must have had something on him today.
Right?
They give him up, and then they're just, he's throwing fuzz balls. He's a big body, and they had no problem hitting it over the fence. I don't know what was going on there.
I do wonder why the Marlins didn't try him in relief either. They're not really doing much of anything. So what could it hurt to try? That's kind of a weird thing for him to just be on waivers. So we'll see. The Cardinals think they found something there. I do know that from a pitching standpoint, it's going to be an incredibly competitive remaining. I think there are 13 games on the docket starting Wednesday, including the one in Memphis. So there is time. You'll see these guys probably 1 or 2 more times, and then big decisions to be made before March 27th. We got one more thing to talk about, but before I forget, let's hear from Arena Club.
FT fam, Arena Club is the modern way to collect cards or buy or sell or trade or even grade. And we're highlighting slab packs because this is the new way to rip open a pack, get a really good card, AJ. But also, if you're not into the card, like I know you pulled a Bob Gibson card recently, you can get an offer of 90% of the estimated value and just accept it on the spot and give it right back and maybe try again with another slab pack.
I ain't getting rid of my Bob Gibson autograph card. Bob Gibson ain't signing cards anytime soon, so I'm keeping this one. It gets graded for you. There's no mess. The only thing I wish they had bubble gum. Can they virtually send me some bubble gum, Scott? Other than that, it's awesome. You can buy, sell cards. They grade them instantly for you. And physically, you can also get the cards if you want them. So I'm all for this. This is one of the coolest things I've ever seen.
Yeah, those cards are in your showroom in the app. And then, of course, you can get the card physically sent to you. So right now, you can get 20% off your first slab pack or card purchase by going to arenaclub.com/FOUL. That's arenaclub.com/FOUL. Code FOUL for 20% off your first purchase.
All right. Last topic of the day. Over the weekend, I caught up with an old friend, number 4. Good to hear from Yadier Molina, who is living his best life as a baseball dad. Most notably, Molina was hired at the winter meetings in 2023 to be a special advisor to the team in 2024 under John Mozeliak. And then he did not show up to a single Cardinals event in 2024, leading fans to wonder where the heck is Yadi. So I think Yadi understood why there was some fan concern and honestly some fan frustration about him not showing up. He was supposed to, under his role, come to spring training, mentor some of the young catchers. He didn't do that last year. He's not going to make it to spring training this year. His rationale this year, though, I think we can understand. His son, Yanu, is 16 years old. He's uncommitted, playing high school baseball in his junior season in Austin, Texas. Yadi actually moved his family, his wife, Wanda, and their 3 children from Puerto Rico to Austin because it was just a better opportunity for Yanu to play baseball. And he's in the crowd every single game. Thursday through Sunday, you cannot reach him. He is locked in on Yanu. But he did say in this conversation, it was about 30 minutes long, he said that just because he's having so much fun as a baseball dad, he's still thinking about St. Louis all the time. And he wants to come back to the city when the time is right. He wants to be there at events. He wants to mentor. He wants to coach. And of course, Trevor, he still wants to manage. You can read the full story on The Athletic. He's not the first former Cardinal in the last weeks or so to express an interest in managing. Albert Pujols, of course, a great article by Bob Nightingale on USA Today about Pujols, who will manage the World Baseball Classic, the Dominican Republic team, and how he wants to be a major league manager as well. Skip Schumacher, friend of ours, just finished up 2 years managing the Miami Marlins. He's a special assistant with the Texas Rangers now, but would certainly be open to managing again. There are no shortage of impactful former Cardinals that would like to be managers someday. And I don't want to speculate on what that means for the state of the St. Louis Cardinals currently, because that's not fair to Ollie Marmol. We don't know what that future holds. There are no openings in Major League Baseball right now from a managerial position. But should one arise, who is your pick to be the first of those 3 to manage another team?
Can I throw my hat in the mix
Yeah,
here?
throw it in there. Let's go.
Of all these former Cardinals, I don't belong in the conversation with Pujols and Yadi. Yadi's, I mean, the fans. I mean, I'm going to advocate for Yadi here. I mean, the guy has given how many decades of his life to St. Louis Cardinals? I mean, that's a lot. That's a long time, and I know from experience, this guy, he was the first one to show up, last one to leave, and on top of that, like Yadi is just one of the most, if not the most intelligent baseball person that I've been around. Like he sees things in the game that nobody else sees. So whatever he's interested in, I think he's going to get the opportunity. If you put him in a room in an interview, you're going to be impressed. Like this guy, he's a baseball guy through and through, but good for him spending time with his family. I mean, his family deserves it. He deserves it. Let him, do what he wants to do at his own pace. And I know he loves St. Louis, and should the opportunity with the right timing come available, he'll be there without a question. I was too busy. What was your question, Katie? I was too busy talking about my favorite person in a baseball uniform.
Who's your pick? I mean, personally, I don't know who I would choose. Like, they're all great candidates between Yadi, Albert, and Skip.
Wait, like to manage anywhere?
Yes.
I mean, well, I would if I was like to bet, I would say Skip. We would see Skip in a managerial role before anybody because he's already done it. He continues to put himself in positions. I mean, senior advisor or special assistant at the Texas Rangers. I mean, if you kind of read into that with Bochy potentially phasing out at some point in the near future, he could fill a role there. So he's continue to keep himself in the mix. And from what I've heard and from me being friends with Skip, he's an amazing person and a baseball genius as well. And players love to play for him. So if I had a bet, I would guess, I mean, Skip would be my highly my highest pick to fill into a managerial role when it would come available. But yeah, I don't think Ollie's going to be getting out of St. Louis anytime soon. So how that plays out, I'm not sure. Can't say enough good things about Albert. He's an amazing, incredible person. He's one of the easiest guys to get along with. We were never teammates, but based on all my interactions with him, you would think that we were best friends and that we were teammates for his entire career. He's just a very charismatic and personable person. And I think he would also do great in that role, especially from a PR standpoint. So I don't know. What do you got, Katie?
It's really hard for me to decide. I mean, I first met Skip Schumacher when I was an intern, fresh out of college, and he was with the San Diego Padres where I was assigned. And he was like the first person with a title in baseball that maybe said hi to me or knew my name. So I always appreciated that. I loved working with him when he was a bench coach here in St. Louis in 2022. He's a guy that just gets it. And I remember I came to the Marlins clubhouse around this time last year after their 2023 campaign where the Marlins weren't expected to do much of anything. And every player I talked to credited Skip Schumacher for turning that clubhouse around. He won Manager of the Year that year for a reason. Clearly knows how to resonate with his guys. I saw it in St. Louis, see it as former teammates, and you saw what he did with Miami. So you can't go wrong with Skip Schumacher no matter what you do. I covered the World Baseball Classic in 2023 as well. I covered Team Puerto Rico where Yadier Molina was managing. And the way that he made game time decisions and scouted the other team. I mean, I saw him put on hit and run with Martin Maldonado, their 9-hitter, and it led to a 4-run rally, and they won the game, and they were trailing like 6-3 at the time. I can't remember the exact score, but that decision, which nobody expected, and everyone was kind of just like, what? Single-handedly sparked a rally, and they won the game. We asked him post-game why he did it, and he looked in the microphone, and he said, because I felt like it. And it was so good. He then gave like a real answer. But that kind of knowledge is just something that it's why Yadi is so respected throughout the game. He just sees the game differently. He's managed in the winter leagues for the last 3 years with 3 different organizations just because he likes the ability to learn new things. He also said it's only a 2.5-month season, so it's easier for his wife to understand him being gone again. And I think Yadier Molina, of course, would be a good manager. His knowledge of the game, his understanding of the game is second to none. Albert Pujols can't say enough good things about him. The way that I don't want to say commands respect because he doesn't say give it to me. he just, when you walk in, you do it because it's Albert Pujols, and people will resonate with that. He obviously sees the game very well, knows how to talk to people. I remember in 2022 coming in the clubhouse and he's sitting with a different player every day, giving them their time. Bad day, good game, family life. He had something to say that resonated with people. So I have no idea who's going to go first. I have no idea where it would be. There are only 30 positions, no matter how you slice it. And it's always a tough decision in terms of candidates, but I don't know. I have no idea. And I do think, though, I wonder, because this is a question I get a lot, if any of those three came back one day and managed the St. Louis Cardinals, and the Cardinals themselves were not a good team, how would that impact their legacy, or would it at all?
I don't think it could at this, but they're such incredible players. I don't think it could affect their legacy per se, and I don't think the team could be bad under them. I mean, St. Louis Cardinals, iconic organization. I mean, this year, put an asterisk by 2025. This is, we'll see. I mean, we want to surprise people, right? We got to get going here, but I don't know. I think it would be hard to taint these guys. I mean, listen to you talk about them, me reminiscing on all my experiences with these guys. I mean, I can't speak highly enough about each and every one of them. I'm sure as soon as an opportunity comes available, they will fill right in. Can you imagine a three-headed monster, Yadi, Albert, and Skip all in the same place? I mean, don't let that happen. Maybe a dynasty right there.
And you got Descalso and Jay just kind of hanging out. That would be an ideal situation just from a writer standpoint. That'd be so much fun. Yeah, it's no matter how you slice the Cardinals fans, I think any of those three would go out and see tons of success as a manager. But where that is, when that is, still yet to be determined. These conversations will actually start to matter at the end of this season, usually when managerial positions open up. But right now, no opening, so this can just be fun little speculation.
Yeah, and I think you got to have a lot of respect for Skip Schumacher too, right? Like, he did play in the major leagues for a long time, and then as soon as his playing career was over, I mean, he went straight into grinding, through the front office and through different coaching positions at the major league level to create this opportunity for himself. And so I just have a lot of respect for that. I mean, he could have spent time with his family and done all of these other things, which I fall into that category too. It's nice to spend time with your family, but Skip, he's sacrificed a lot to get the opportunities that he has had. So I don't want to overshadow that either, because it is a big commitment, and you and I both know Skip very well. He takes it very seriously. It's not something that he takes lightly, and he's dedicated his life to giving his best to Major League Baseball, and he's been rewarded for it. So I would love to see him continue to get those opportunities.
All right, Trevor, time flies when we're having fun. That was a good one. Can't believe we're almost to the end of spring. We will be back with you. Well, I will be at the end of the week. Some very special guests that I can't reveal yet because they don't know which games they're playing yet, which impacts when they can come on the podcast. So that's a hint. That's some players. And then Trevor, you're back with me next week. Yeah, that's about it. That's all I have. Any closing remarks, Trevor?
Closing remarks. Well, we got to come up with a nickname for Katie Woo. I don't know if you have one, but
no, they just roll my eyes like the reporter girl. Whatever.
Everybody's happy. You do a great job, Katie. Great job on the Yadi Molina article. That was a really fun read, and like you said, very timely with Albert gaining some attention and the work that he's doing and the interest that he has. So, I mean, keep up the good work, Katie. I've learned so much from you in a short time, and we're getting close. We got just a couple more weeks. A lot of good baseball ahead. A lot of storylines happening across all of baseball, not just with the Cardinals. We talked about Garrett Cole going down. There's been some other injuries, but we'll continue to keep our fan base updated on the Cardinals.
That's it. That's the whole motto of Cardinal Territory: keeping you updated and totally having our lives together. That's it.
Totally. No holes in our game.
Zero. For Trevor Rosenthal, I'm Katie Woo. This was Cardinal Territory. We'll be back with you very soon.